Hey, what's up everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. Alright. Not sure what I'm looking to find out here, but I made the decision to take my walk and get out. Not really interested in doing either, both being in the house or getting out the house, but you gotta choose something. But I think that's the vibes today. Just didn't really feel like doing my routine, whatever the routine would be. But ultimately, as I was feeling in the house, kind of cooped up, it was like, all right, let's get out. I still ain't listening to that playlist I made. I know I'm gonna enjoy it because all of that music sounds great to me, but I just ain't found the right time to do it. These Laker games have kind of, because they've scheduled them later rather than earlier, trying to keep up with the duties of that and getting out in the daytime, it just hasn't allowed for me to have a time to sit down and really listen to the music and do my art thing and my pomegranate eating and all that other stuff that I like to do when the Lakers don't play. It's kind of hard to do when them games are scheduled at 7:30. The end at 10:30, I'm already too tired to do any of that. And so that's really what's been going on as of yesterday. And then, so today it's like I could do it in the daytime, but it's like I don't feel like being in that house. I really didn't feel like being cooped up in there. Just didn't. But at the same time, I also didn't feel like doing this long walk to the train station necessarily today, and all the different stuff that I normally do. I didn't really see myself enjoying that right now either. So it's like I only got a few options. I ain't got much else going on today. So it's like you gonna stay in or go out, but you can't. There's no third option, and it's almost like I wish there was a third option. Maybe I could grow some wings and fly to the moon. So I don't know what the hell I feel like doing, but it definitely ain't one of the two things that I had options to do. So it just is what it is, man. Just opted the lesser of two evils, which to me was getting some fresh air, some exercise, and hopefully finding a better mood for what would be outside, rather than sitting down in that room and just starting the art process, for which I honestly feel like making any art right now. And that's another problem. Sometimes when you feel like doing art, it just ain't the most it's the most inopportune time to do it. I'll tell myself, yeah, I want to do art at a certain hour, and then when that hour come around, I don't want to do no art. Or we have days like yesterday afternoon when I needed to come out to get the things that I needed from the grocery store or whatever, but felt like doing art. It's just like it don't. I would love to tell people who are non-creatives that we could schedule a time to do art, but to be honest with you, it doesn't even really work like that organically. You can sit down and maybe you come up with something, but you don't actually feel like doing it. So it's not inspired. But yesterday when I made the art for the CD, I was really inspired to do the art and loved how the art came out. So it's just, if you're gonna sit down and use your resources, your art resources and all of that, it should be when you feel like doing it, or when you feel you need to do it for your own reasons, rather than just, okay, it's this hour, so let's do it because it's the hour I've set aside to do it. That may work for some, but not for me, I don't believe. So that was my thinking, just let me get out, because I don't feel like necessarily sitting down, listening to music and doing art when there's fresh air out here and sunlight out here, and really not a whole lot of ventilation coming into that room at all, because I don't like sitting in front of that window necessarily in this particular room, because the fan points directly at me. So if I'm gonna do art with paper, the wind is actually blowing my way, and I always keep my fan on for the ventilation itself. So it's like, all right, yeah, that's directly in front of where I'm going to be doing my art. That's just not going to work. So I usually close the window, and at night that's not a problem. Just cutting off those windows and then turning on the light at night is fine. But as I told you guys, I don't like having light on in the daytime. So this is a lot of different things that would have been pet peevish for me for in this particular room to do art at this particular hour. So I'm like, all right, I'm not feeling it. Let me get out the house, see if I'm feeling the air. So far, so good. It's the good mixture of warmth and breeze to where you don't need a jacket right now, and it's not too hot. So happy with my decision. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I feel pretty good today. I decided, of course, not to do my doctor's appointment. I canceled that yesterday. I would have had to get up at like 6 a.m. to do that, and it turns out I was up at 4 a.m. But I didn't necessarily get out of bed until about 9. I think I went back to sleep at like 7:30, but I was up from like 4 to like 5 something, specifically reminiscing on moments past. And I ran down a whole lot of stuff in my head and tried to access some memories to stuff that I had put out of my mind that pretty much was a specific bunch of years from my life, more or less from like 16 on to like 36. I was just thinking about all types of stuff that led around those areas, those times in my life. And it made me very happy thinking about those memories. I have a lot more good memories in that bunch of time than bad when I actually sat down and think about it. And I tell you the truth, I'm not one of those people that do a whole lot of reminiscing. I don't think about the past too much as it pertains to just different things. Where was I here? What was I there? How did I feel here? And when I look back on my past, I had a lot of fun, a lot of stuff that I liked. You know, for somebody who has the type of anxiety stuff and some of the traumas that I have, I don't have a bad memory of my life. Not really, especially when I start really digging in. I spent some good days on this earth prior to things getting as rough as they have here. I've had more good times than bad for sure. A lot of much more outweighing the bad. And so, you know, I'm a fortunate person in that way. Even though I wasn't raised with a whole lot, didn't have a lot of money throughout the course of those times, you know, to really have certain memories that you may relate to. But my own memories of good times with good people, I've been fortunate in that way for sure. So that's what I was able to think about this morning, waking up out of my dream. I don't remember what that dream was, so it wasn't nothing too serious, but that was how I wanted to approach it. I started the process praying, and sure enough, that's what came to mind. There's various different things that I had been through between 16, 17, trying to access them early memories from that era, which were not as easy as one would think. I had smoked a lot of stuff away, man. Like just going through the process of being a pothead in my 20s. A lot of the memories from that surrounding era of my life, I don't remember a lot of stuff. I had to really concentrate to kind of take myself back to certain places, and the sequence of things. Timelines were terrible. I couldn't remember certain timelines for nothing. What happened before this, what happened before that. A lot of that stuff is gone. But it's a lot of positive memories. And I tell you, the ones that I didn't appreciate the most were just times when nothing was going on. And that's what I came to kind of remember. It was like, yo, when I was most unhappy, a lot of times it was because I was numb. I remember sitting on the stairs at Dunsmuir during an era of my life when I didn't have work. I wasn't in school. I hadn't accomplished certain things that would allow me to be proud of myself. And I was just sitting there right after high school ended, just kind of miserable with my life because there was nothing going on. There wasn't nothing real good going on, and there wasn't nothing bad going on. And I was, before my mom had gotten diagnosed with cancer, I was just miserable because life was numb. There was nothing going on. I had nothing to be proud of, nothing to be ashamed of. It wasn't nothing poignant. I was just sitting there and I was waiting for life to happen. And I just remember sitting on the stairs smoking weed one time saying, this is the worst aspect of my existence. It ain't when I'm going through the worst of stuff, because in those times you challenge yourself to feel alive, you go to close to God, you know what I mean? It ain't, of course it ain't when things are great, because things are great and that speaks for itself. It's when there's nothing happening. It's when I think I found myself in the past most miserable. You know? Now obviously when you're going through the difficulties of what it is I'm going through now, at the beginning of that, I would definitely say that's much more miserable. But it was something to be said for having the faith to say, okay, these are horrible times. I don't want to be here. It sucks. Everything is bad, but I have to turn to God for these difficulties. And in finding God, you find inner strength, you find inner peace, and what you don't find is boredom. And I tell you the truth, all of that stuff, as miserable as I was, as scared as I was, or whatever the word would be, what I was not was bored. And I tell you, boredom is a different type of misery for this particular mind. But see, I've turned my life around in the sense that now I've accomplished some things. I started the process of being an artist. My channel is in place now. So a lot of that has made it so that it's much more difficult for me to find a path toward that type of emptiness these days. It's just too much going on for me. Following the Laker channel, stuff like that. Although, if the Lakers were going on, I wasn't going through that. I don't know how people are driving out here, but that was definitely during the summertime, but at the off season was happening. I can guarantee you that. And I'm pretty sure the team was probably terrible during that era of my life. We probably had Kobe, but we probably had a bunch of bad players too. It was just a real emptiness, you know. Summertime, I'm pretty sure. And, you know, Mom, if I'm not mistaken, Mom was working 2 jobs at the time, so she wasn't around. There was just nothing going on for me at the time. So I was absolutely miserable. Staying in the house, didn't want to leave the house, but hadn't accomplished anything that would make me proud of myself. It was just, that was one of the worst times. Probably like 22, 20, 23, something like that. You know, some of them old jobs that I was in, I had quit some of them jobs. Didn't want to work at the time, that kind of thing. I was just not that guy that I've become. Proud of myself and, you know, artistic and all this different stuff. Had discovered certain things about myself later on that helped me understand who I was as a person. I flushed myself through certain struggles I was thinking about that came in my late 20s, early 30s. You know, trying to keep myself from letting my worst be what I, you know, saw in the mirror every day. Not knowing not to play with God, as I've often said in this camera. You learn in life, and you say, okay, this is who I am. This is me. These are the worst attributes of myself. I could either move toward those worst attributes to make my worst urges feel great, or I can discipline myself away from those things and be pretty easy with my consequences. And it took going through some difficult times, a bump in my head, to learn that it wasn't as simple as I found who I want to be, or I found out the worst aspects of me, and now I'm going to do whatever makes me happy, whether it hurts others or not. And you grow strong enough to say, nah, I don't like the consequences of that. I don't like how that reflects on me. And it just took me kind of going through the late 20s, early 30s to really help me understand, all right, nah, I know who I am and I know who I'm not. And I don't want to be someone that I am not proud of. Let me find a path to get there. You know, there was a lot of that in my early 30s, very early, 30, 31. Mom first got diagnosed, you know, dealing with that. Just a lot of self-discovery, I guess is what you could say, during that time. And when I reflect upon my friend KT and where she's at right now, I believe she's 29. I think she may be turning either 30 this year or next. I'm not really sure. But like, just kind of reflecting and paralleling where I think she may generally be versus where I was at that same time. And for me, it was like, at 29, I was still discovering who I was and then trying to learn how to not walk into circumstances that were no good for me while still simultaneously experimenting with the newfound understanding of who I become. It's like, oh, I like to do this. Oh, this is what I like. Oh, this is what I'm into. Okay. But to not play around with circumstances within that discovery that would make you worse. You know what I mean? You get through that and then you go through that and then you move on through that. It's like, all right, this is me. This ain't new no more. I ain't interested in any of this. I don't want to smoke that or drink that, go crazy, hang with them. I don't, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. That was where I was at 29. It's like, oh, okay, this is what I'm into. All right, this is what I like to do. But nah, this probably ain't right for me though. And maybe I should discipline from that. Like to do may not be the end all be all. Just because I appreciate it don't mean it's right, you know, for me. So I had to go through that phase. Self-discovery sometimes will put you in a place where the worst things that you ultimately appreciate are the things that you just are so excited about and you just go toward without any conscience whatsoever. that and leave you in a space where you're living with the consequences of that. And you go through the process of going through the consequences and you realize it ain't worth it to even play around with stuff like that. Just because you appreciate it don't mean you appreciate what come with it. Maybe some people go through that in different times of their life. For me, it was more like that era of my life. And so, you know, you just got to be patient with yourself. I think, you know, that's what it is when I think about Valentine's Day. A lot of times it's about loving other people, but it's really about loving love itself, loving God, loving yourself, loving just your path. And I think that's what I kind of was getting at, I guess, at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock this morning, was like, as I look back on my path through adolescence and young manhood and in my 30s, you know, 30 somethings, it's just, you learn to love yourself, you know, especially in this era where I've faced certain challenges and won certain battles with my own peace. You know, with the lack of peace, rather, and found peace within difficulties, you know. Not looking to the left of me or to the right of me or to nobody try to co-sign my strength or co-sign my validity as a human being. And you stop caring about what other people think as it pertains to whether or not you're doing the things that you should be doing as you walk the earth. You know, you stop being influenced by people who are running toward brick walls really fast. And I mean, it just gets to a point where it's like, nah, I know I've seen enough people hit them walls. I'm gonna take a different path. And I mean, and it took, you know, I was coming out of that in my 30s, but I was struggling with it to it just the same. Like, even though I wasn't really involved in certain things, I still thought it was something wrong for me for not wanting to be involved in certain things. Why don't I want to do this? Why don't I do that? I should want to do that because that's what we do. And you start realizing, that was somebody else's culture that a bunch of people adapted to. You create your own culture. You create your own, be your own self. Those are not your measuring tools. That's their measuring tools. Those are the ones that are set in place for you to trace around. But if you're creative, you don't need to trace around anybody else's print. You create your own, and someone else will trace around that if they choose. You know what I mean? Just you find out who you are as a creative. I'm not a follower at all. You know what I mean? And that's what I come to understand. I look back on some of my moments when I was doing what they do. When I got in those places I was not comfortable. Go to the club, drink this drink. Everybody else felt naturally wired to be in those places. I was always out of place in those places. I feel more comfortable right now walking down the street with a phone in my hand talking to it than I did in a club with a drink in my hand surrounded by a bunch of dancing people and that. I didn't like, it's not that I didn't like that environment, because to a degree I actually did, but it didn't come naturally to me. When I was there, I felt out of place. I felt uncomfortable and out of place. And sometimes it would take a lot of drink or a lot of weed for me to numb out that feeling of being out of place. Yeah, that's something that I look back on all the times. My boys, let's go to the bar. I don't never ever wanted to be at the bar. And when I was at the bar, depending on who the bartender was, I was drinking too much. If one of my homies was the bartender, I had some of the worst moments, some of the most challenging drunken experiences of my life came from when there was no limit to the liquor. I wasn't very good at putting limitations on my liquor. That was not my strength in life. If there's liquor there, I'm probably drinking too much as a young person. As to where other people handle their liquor, I was a lightweight. So it was bad for me. And I look at some of the stuff that I did that I wasn't proud of while drunk. And then I look at some of the moments that took place where things went very bad. And I realized the Lord made me pay for circumstances that I wasn't held accountable for in other areas. And when I counted 2 where I had gotten away with something I know I shouldn't do, then I counted 2 times where I got the lights beat out of me. And it's like, yo, there's those, hey, the correlate, that number matches. I did that, got away with it. You came back, broke my eye socket, cut the back of my head, knocked me out. Like, okay, you were teaching me these lessons. I did that, okay, and I came home drunk, threw up all over myself, You know what I'm saying? Broke the mirror in my room, cut the back of my arm on that mirror, and fell asleep without even realizing any of that had happened. My mom came in, put a bandage on my arm, cleaned up the throw up without ever waking me up. Like, you know what I'm saying? To the point where you just know, because of those experiences, you just don't need to be drinking. Everybody else can drink. I don't need to be drinking. You know what I'm saying? It came down to that for me. When you have them type of experiences, and my friends wasn't having them type of experiences when they drink and go out. It was always me that was doing the most embarrassing things, being drunk. So it's like, nah, liquor ain't for me. I'll smoke. I'm cool. My body vibes well with marijuana. At the time when I wanted to play like that, not anymore, but at the time that was what it was. Liquor, I couldn't do liquor, man. I would do it all the time. I would drink with my friends, and I would always have the experiences they didn't. Getting jumped. They all be there, but they never had the experience I have. Would never go like that for them. I was always the pincushion. I was always the one getting the worst of it. I was always the one throwing up all over myself, throwing up all over the bathroom, and then having to sit in the car head nodding while everybody else is dancing. Like this, that's why I realized I wasn't wired like everybody else. Because when we would go out, if anybody had a bad night, it was me. There was a time when we used to go to this club called the Century Club, and the security guard there would never believe that my ID was me, because in the ID I had a big old afro when I was like 50 pounds heavier. I had lost weight and shaved my head. I had actually turned 21. In fact, he did this throughout the course of my entire 21st year. He would not let me in the club, fam. And it was more than once where I would go to that club, he would be there. God knows why I didn't learn the first time with this club. And I would have to sit outside or take the bus home while my friends went inside. Now here's the kicker. Here's the kicker though. The year before that, I was running around with my homeboy T's ID and getting into the club without any trouble. This same guy believed I was T, but didn't believe I was me. God's honest truth. And I look nothing like T. And the funny thing was, he had a twin brother. Twin, looked just like him, that also was the security guard at the Dragonfly. And here's the irony about that. He was the homie. Never had a problem with him. It got really confusing once because I'm like, bro, you gonna let me in? He's like, of course. I was like, what the hell? You got a brother, huh? He was like, at the Century Club. Yeah. And I told him the experience. He was like, oh my God. I was like, bro, this is me. Tell your brother this is me. Like, you know me. He don't know me. He looks like you, and it's rather confusing. That was a real thing. But this dude was an asshole to me, man. I use that word very, very strongly because it's at one point I gave him an ID. I gave him showed him other things with my name on it. You know what I mean? Other forms of ID, like a debit card or something. And he still wouldn't take it. And he was laughing at me like, bro, you know this is me. At this point, you know this is me. I wouldn't keep coming back doing the same stupid shit. You know this is me. And he just would not let me in. So like, those are the experiences I had going to the club with friends. None of them had none of those experiences. All my homies would be the same 6 guys, 5 guys, going to the same places, and I would be the only one to have bad nights consistently. Went to the Shack, got super drunk. When my homeboy was the bartender there, still is. And you know, it was one of those situations where I ended up getting the best of myself. The demons in me were getting the best of me. I wasn't no good of a human being that night. And I was punking some little dude. Just, I don't know what the hell got into me. I was telling him all types of stuff. And I guess one of his people saw what I was doing, came by and sucker punched me in the eye while I was confronting whoever I was confronting. Don't remember what nobody looked like. Never saw the punch come out of nowhere. Never saw it. But it broke like 3 parts of my face. And so in that situation, I didn't find myself, of course I bounced back up immediately. It didn't knock me out, even though it broke my face. I jumped up, took my shirt off, ready to fight, and the person that had punched me had jumped in the car and ran off right after doing so. It's some real sucker stuff right there. But nevertheless, I was being a sucker too, because I was trying to more or less act like I was tough or something in the presence of somebody who was smaller than me, just trying to, you know what I mean, being all out of my character. And at that point, I realized, man, this liquor shit ain't for me, you guys. I don't like who I become off of liquor. I don't remember who I become off of liquor. Bad energy happens from within myself, off of liquor, out of my character. I deserve that punch. Maybe not in the form of, I would have preferred a fair one, but I deserved the punch. I ain't gonna sit here and act like I didn't. The way I was acting, yeah, man. Yeah. And it taught me a hard lesson. While everybody else can have fun with liquor, while everybody else can do that, I cannot. And if that didn't teach me something, then another night where I was at the Dragonfly, same club where this guy's brother was at, who's cool, and I go up there for Jamaican Gold very often on Santa Monica Boulevard. I don't know if the Dragonfly is still there, but it's a rather popular club in Hollywood. I would go there every Thursday. Went there for years. Super regular at the Jamaican Gold Thursday nights. One of them nights I went up there, my boy and T and I had drunk so much 151 and Coke, which we call Devil's Piss. They disconnected. They discontinued that. I don't know why. It was our favorite choice to drink, but it was the most, it was the heaviest stuff on the market, 151 proof. But we drank it like it was water. I mean, we drink it like literally like it was water. It was our drink of choice. It probably would have remained that way if they wouldn't have discontinued it. But nevertheless, we had drank so much of that. We had bought a big bottle, as we did sometimes, if I'm not mistaken. And I had pre-drank at the house and then drank some more on the way there in the car, smoked weed, drank some more when I got there, ordered some. After all that drinking, we ordered some more and then smoked some more weed there. So I'm all out of my mind. I've told this story once before, so if you've heard it before, it was probably like 600 episodes ago. But nevertheless, I drank so much and smoked so much that night that I was well above my limitation for being under control, well above it. And I was in there I went to the bar, and I was barely cohesive, barely standing. And so I don't know what was going on with this group, who they were, what they were doing, but they told me to move away from the bar. And I said, no, I ain't moving. And I didn't care to stumble myself away from the bar. I was barely standing. And whatever the hell they were on, I wasn't. It was one person who was next to me, this Jamaican dude, and he told me to move. I didn't know he had everybody around him with him, and I didn't know what the hell they were doing, what they were posturing. Had I been sharp, I would have never been over there because I'd have peeped out their energy before I even walked over there. But because I was drunk and all out of my mind, I felt like Superman. Nobody gonna touch me. And if they are gonna touch me, I don't know, maybe they can't hurt me. So I don't know what the hell I was thinking. It wasn't nothing smart. Whatever the case may be, he told me to move. I told him where he could go. The next thing I know, it's like 5 people hitting me all inside my head. I feel myself going down. I feel a cut on the back of my neck, and I can't go unconscious. I wake up, the back of my neck is bleeding. My homeboy and the security guard are trying to leave me out of the club. We get in a taxi, go to the ER, and had to get a bunch of stitches on the back of my neck. I only remember partial moments of all of that, and the stitches never pained me at all because that's how drunk I was. Even in the hospital, I was drunk as hell. Now, mind you, the punch and this probably happened the same year. Probably happened the same year, man. I tell you the truth, I was so drunk, I did not defend myself at all from them punches, and most of them punches felt light. As they were hitting me in the skull, I was like, man, y'all ain't hit. I remember being hit. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, these dudes hit less. They say hit weaker than my mama. That's what I was thinking in my drunken mind. Not let me swing back. I'm just like, man, these punches, I'm eating these punches. They don't hurt, man. They ain't doing nothing to me. They don't hurt. These dudes don't have strong. That's all I was thinking. These dudes are not strong at all. What the hell? Y'all think y'all gonna hurt me? Y'all can't even hurt me. And then I looked over, my boy T was swinging at one of them. I saw him fighting, and then I went down. I don't remember when anybody cut me in the back of my neck. I don't know if they hit a glass over the back of my head or used a razor blade. I have no idea what they used to cut me. But they got me fair and square. And so at that point, I'm like, all right, I've been stabbed. But it wasn't nothing life-threatening to me, but it was big enough to where I needed them stitches. I woke up and it barely hurt. Even that, I was so drunk and so out of it that even it numbed the pain from the cut. I didn't feel nothing. It wasn't really all that painful. None of it was. But I did lose consciousness. So it's like, when you have experiences like that, and then probably less than 7 months later, going back out, drinking with friends, and then throwing up all over the club, bathroom. Like, it's like, all right, man, y'all can drink liquor. I do not do well with this. Every time I drink, every third time I drink, it's a problem. Every third or fourth time I drink, it's a problem. And then I get the worse hangovers than anybody else in my clique. It just got to a point where it's like, bro, at some point in time, I got to realize I am not wired like y'all. Y'all drink liquor, I do not. And I was like, man, that's it. I'm smoking now. That's it. Y'all can have that liquor stuff. I'm good. No more beer, no more none of that. Just marijuana. I don't want no drugs. I don't want no shrooms. Y'all can have all of that. I never want any of it. Just give me marijuana and only specific types of strands. Otherwise, I was good. And it just took a lot of bump in my head, man, to learn that. You get to a point where you're like, man, I don't want no parts of none of this. I don't care what everybody else does. I don't care how they move, because they don't be having the consequences that I do. They don't be having them bad nights like me. It's only me that ends up struggling like that. And so that's what it really was for me. You just come to a point in your life, and you go through enough of that in your 20s. And in your 30s, it's like, nah, I know who I am, but I still think I should be doing those things to a degree. I kind of come out of it, but it's still cool to me. So it was a lot of that going on in my 30s. And I was like, man, and you go through real life stuff. I guess the way my path in my life is, I went through some real stuff after that. And so it was like, nah, I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I don't. And if the people who want to hang out with me want to do those things, they can do those things, but I ain't doing none of them. I'm cool, bro. And it just eventually it's like, I don't even want to go to these places. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I going where the liquor's at? Friends be like, let's go to the bar. Why? I ain't drinking. Hang out with us. So I could be around a bunch of drunk people sober. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do what I like to do. And none of y'all like to do what I like to do. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm going to do all this alone. I ain't got to move like y'all or move with y'all. Y'all wired for this. I wanted to be around y'all. And by way of having bad experiences in doing this, I found I wasn't wired for any of that. You can learn who you are, but sometimes you learn the hard way. Just like I talked about with allergies. You know, you don't know what you're allergic to, but you end up bumping your head on every damn thing you're allergic to. And it's like, oh, I can't have that, can't have that, can't have that. Yeah, but you got the consequences of it in the meantime. You got to deal with the rash. You got to deal with the breakouts. You got to deal with whatever. It just gets to a point where it's like, nah, I know who I am now. I ain't messing with none of that. Y'all have fun with all that. I'm cool. And that's what it was for me, man. And when you don't love yourself properly, then you're like, well, man, I don't care if this don't work for me, man. Let me just go out here and do whatever. And however the consequences go, so be it. I'll be cool regardless. Nah, you learn to appreciate yourself a little more. You start accomplishing a few things, start seeing yourself in better lights. And then you don't want to do things that hurt you. And it took a point for me to get to that space where it's like, nah, I don't want to do things that hurt me. I like me a lot. I'm a solid dude. I do good things for the people that love me, and I want to reflect positively upon them. So me doing stuff that don't work for me is only going to put more pressure on them. It's going to put more stress on them or what have you. So it's like, nah, let me stay away from that bull crap. You know what I mean? And so that's a big part of it, man. You learn to love yourself. A couple times, I remember looking back, it's just frustrated. It's like, I got to move alone, because I remember a time I was hanging out with my buddies. I had the worst migraine imaginable. I don't know what caused it. Probably drinking of the previous night, maybe. Because I don't think we had drank that day, but maybe I had played basketball or something and didn't eat. I don't know what it was, but my migraine was ridiculous. And I was hanging out with a couple of my friends, and they wanted to go to the video store. I'm like, bro, take me home, bro. I'm in the worst pain of my life. And they're like, hold up, since we driving, we control this. We're going to go to the video store first, and then we'll take you home. And I just remember sitting in there like, man, this is why I don't play with people. Like, I'm on my own time. That was the day that I realized that I'm not a pack mover. I don't move with the pack. If the pack is in control of how I'm moving, then there's something wrong. Because when it's time for me to go, I'm going home. when it's time for me to come out, I'm coming out. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, whatever everybody else is doing, I ain't no pack animal. I'm not a gang member, none of that. Because it was moments like those that helped me understand. And I'm a natural loner. I can't have it so that when it's time for me to bounce, I'm waiting on other people. Hell no. I'm ready to bounce. You know what I'm saying? So that was a moment in time where I could say my friends were being inconsiderate, but they were just being guys, you know what I mean? They ain't caring about my headache. They were more focused on going to see whatever they wanted to see at the video store. And I was a little upset about that, but at the same time, it's like, if I'm not in control of myself, you know, it was one of those situations where I couldn't get mad at them. I didn't have my own car, and I was on their time. They had plans of what they wanted to do with their night, and it wasn't about wasting gas to get me where I wanted to be, but more so about them doing it their way. And then in the process and route of where they wanted to, for what they wanted to do, I fell in somewhere. Deal with yourself was what they told me, and so that was what it was. That day, in that sequence, I stopped relying upon others to do for me in that way. I stopped wanting to go places if I couldn't get myself to and from. There were instances where I did, you know what I mean, where I was getting in the car with the homies, it's like, but I tried to limit those far and in between after that. I tried to limit those. And that's when I really stopped wanting to hang out. It was like, that was the beginning of the end for me hanging with the pack. It's like, bro, because when I'm sick, I don't want to do what y'all do. Or it was stuff like little things, like maybe they wanted to play basketball and then wanted to go to the movie theater. Me, I want to play basketball, I want to go home and shower, and then I want to go to the movie theater. And a lot of times they would get irritated with me because I was the only one who demanded to go home to take a shower. They didn't care about necessarily showering. I just wasn't wired for that. That wasn't how I like to operate at all. But just the same, I was inconsiderate in a sense where you got 5 people who all want to go to the movie theater and one person who wants to derail the entire pack so that they can take care of something that meant something to them. I was too being selfish in that way. And I was mature enough to know that too. So it was like, yo, look, I'm not going with y'all nowhere. Why? Because I like to move differently than y'all do. I don't like drinking what y'all do. I like to do my own thing. So if y'all want to do all of this together and y'all wired to do that, then I'm the problem. You feel me? Because I want to do things my way, and I don't care that I'm inconveniencing you in order for me to get it done. So if I'm the problem in that way, it's me that needs to be removed. And so that's why I started removing myself from some of my friends and doing the things that they like to do. They're like, B, why you don't come out no more? These are the reasons why. Because I'm wired differently. And I have the experiences in those situations that they don't have. The bad days for me were good days for them. And rarely did I see them have bad days at all when they did those things. And it was like, yo, man, all I really want to do in that era was sit back, smoke weed, play 2K. That was all I wanted to do, man. That was it. I didn't want to do none of that stuff they wanted to do. You know what I mean? And so I would do it to be around them. I would do it because I wanted to make them feel like I was a better friend to them. I would do it because sometimes it's just best to be out with your buddies to get fresh air, since I didn't have a whole lot of initiating my own plans at that time. I go to work, come home. If I was working, if I wasn't working, I'm staying home. So it was like, because I didn't have a whole lot of creativity about doing things for myself, that'd be the only time I interact with the world. There's only so many games of 2K you want to play before you want to see your buddies at 23, 22, 25 years old. At that era of my life, I really did want to be around my friends, but it took them experiences help me understand, like, man, I'm not a part of the pack. You know what I mean? I'm just not. I'm a lone wolf, and I'm wired to be that way, and probably will remain that way for the rest of my existence. I'm comfortable with it. You know what I mean? This is what comes naturally to me. Now, if they were to do what I do, they would feel out of place. You know what I mean? They were social butterflies and socialites, or whatever the word would be for a man. And I don't want to be home. They wanted to be around the girls and talk. I was insecure in myself in that way. I didn't want to talk to no girls. I want to be around them and look at them, but I was creepy in that way, if I would be honest. I sit there like a security guard before I even became a security guard. I would stand by the door and watch the world around me with a drink in my hand. watch the dudes making sure nobody was pulling out a gun. Like, I was already thinking like a security guard before I even became one. And so it was like, man, this ain't the environment for me. I don't like this stuff. I want to do what I want to do in my way. And if that means not being around the friends, then that's exactly what it's supposed to be. But it takes a certain level of strength in yourself to say, let me get away from the pack, or let me do what works for me. You know what I mean? And so people start looking and saying, well, I guess he ain't coming around no more. But it's like, this is why. Because when I go to the shack, bad things happen. The shack meaning the bar. And it was a place that we went to. The same place I ended up having that situation where I got hit in the head. In the face, and broke my face with that dude sucker punching me and me bullying whoever I was trying to bully or whatever the hell I thought I was doing. That happened at the shack. And that wasn't the only bad thing that happened at the shack. But every time I go to the shack, if something bad happened, it happened to me. So it's like, I don't want to go to the shack. They asked me a couple days ago for the Super Bowl, I want to go to the shack. And nah, I'm probably cool. Nah. Bad things happen when I go to the shack. And so I've had some good times at the shack. Don't get it twisted. It's not a bad place. It's just bad luck for me. When I've gone there, bad things happen. At times. So it's like, I just felt like God was telling me, you're in a different world. You're on a different path, man. You're not here to do what everybody else is doing. You're not here to be what everybody else is about. Just take these bad experiences as a sign that you learn how to be yourself instead of following everybody else. Because if I wanted them all to think the way I want you to think, I'd be giving them hard times in them situations too. I didn't give them those, I gave them to you. And so that's how I took it, as I meditated about it. So yeah. All right, God, cool. So, yeah, man, that's what comes to mind on Valentine's Day, man. Just looking back on my life and coming to understand why I'm not wired to be around my friends consistently anymore, or why I don't look for new friends to be around like that anymore. Because I like having full range to be myself. I'm much more confident alone than I am in a pack full of people, man. People can be volatile in their patterns. Some of my friends are not as punctual as I like to be, or more so punctual than me, for fairness. So where it's like I'm on my own rhythm, as I told you guys. And that's something I need to work on. So it's like, if somebody say they're gonna be there at 5, they show up at 7:30. That type of stuff, it drive me nuts. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. And so it's like, nah, I'd rather be a lone wolf, man. I'm not rolling with everybody else. Not at all. And it's like, I understand some people get more strength. I have a couple friends that I've seen, they grow more confident when they're in packs. And that's a normal human trait for a lot of people. It just ain't normal for me. They feel more confident when they're in packs. More people around, the more confident they feel. You too, man. And it's what it was for me. The opposite of that. I felt more confident by myself. I felt kind of bogged down when I had a lot of people around me. I felt like I had to always watch around me when there's a pack of people around me. Not only as it pertains to them specifically, but because of what it is they would attract by being around me. I had a acquaintance that I used to go to the club with sometimes. He would get into it with people. In fact, I had 2 friends like that. You look up and you're in a fight because of something they did. You sitting up drinking, minding your business, and you look up, they in somebody's face. Once I started seeing that was a trait of a couple of my buddies, then it was like, all right, if they're gonna be there, I'm not. If they're gonna be there, I'm not. Because I'm not trying to be fighting over somebody else's nonsense. Like I drug my homeboy T into when he had to fight as I was getting my butt pushed around and knocked around, not defending myself, drunk as hell. Those are the circumstances that I never want to be in. I don't want to put anybody in them circumstances anymore either. So that's all the more reason why to stay by myself. But I know how to handle myself by myself. But when I'm in the presence of other people, sometimes they don't. Now they got a whole gang of people with them. Now it's like, all right, I stick my chest out. This is like some people when they're armed. It's like, all right, I can get into whatever altercation because at the end of the day, I got this gun. But it's like, but if you fear the consequences of what happens when you fire that gun and somebody die, you're going to be even more reluctant to stay out of them circumstances because you got that gun. But not everybody think like that. And so that was my thinking. It's like, look, I don't want to be around volatile minds who are going to feel powerful because I'm a body that helps them be able to feel stronger in their own skin. If some type of situation come about, now they got 7-8 people to back them up. I don't need 7-8 people to back me up. I'm wired to where I feel more comfortable if I'm by myself. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the right way to approach an army. Obviously not. But I know how to, just the same, avoid an army. You know what I mean? Like, by myself. And so it's like when you're comfortable, really comfortable by yourself, others can be a hindrance to your confidence, not the other way around. Some people, when they stick their chest out, they got like 7 people, 8 people, 80 people with them. Now they can talk all the crap. Not me. Not me. I'm the opposite. And so if anybody ever wondered, oh, BDF gangbang, I'm not wired to gangbang. That very energy would have made me a loner. Y'all all going together to do something you ain't got no business doing, and the consequences are going to be that you're going to end up fighting somebody that look like you, killing somebody that look like you, or being killed by somebody that look like you. Yeah, I'm going to be somewhere else. The majority of my day and my night, if I grew up in those environments, I would be elsewhere. Not because of anything other than the fact that I'm not wired for that. I would have probably the same type of situation happen as it did with my real life. Bad experiences over and over again until I realized I'm not supposed to be in those situations. That's how that go. I remember hanging out with my cousin, got in some trouble. He was doing whatever he was doing. I had to get away from that. As long as I was following them, I was more likely to get caught up in what they were doing. The moment I broke away from them, I was able to stay elusive. They got caught, I got away. And at that moment, I realized, I'm a lone wolf, man. I survive better when I'm by myself. I can't move with the crowd like everybody else. That is not how I survive. I got out of that situation only because I broke away from them. Only. My cousin did some things, got caught. As much as I want to say about that, I got away from them. I made sure I secured myself in the way that would otherwise keep me from being in trouble. And the only way I knew how to handle that was to break away from them. They're like, come with us, let's go. We getting out of here. No, you getting out of here. I don't know who the hell you are. That's exactly how I had to play that. And as a result, I didn't skip a beat. He went to jail for a year, literally. That's exactly how that went. Thank you for not snitching. Stand up dude. Not that I had anything to do with that, but he could have said I had others with me, accomplices. He didn't. Stand up dude. And it's one of them situations where it's like, yo, I didn't even do anything. But because I was rolling with them, I could have been caught up in that. And if I would have stayed close to them with the pack mentality, as they were getting caught, I'd have been right next to them. But because I had that independent mind, like, yo, they caught. I peeped what was going on. My street smarts kicked in, like, yo, this is what I need to do to keep from being a part of what consequences are coming, because they caught. And I worked those consequences out on my own, worked those situations out on my own, walked out of there free as a bird. And that's the only way I know how to survive, man. It's the only way I know how. Some people are just wired like that. While the rest of the world wants to pack and huddle around each other, I'm trying to get as far away from y'all as possible. It's how I know how to survive. It's the best way for me, as I'm wired, to stay free, stay solid, stay all of that. I ain't with none of that. Y'all do what y'all do. If it works for you, it works for you. It does not, by way of trial and error, it does not work for me. And so as you grow older, you just understand that. You're more comfortable with that. You don't question that no more. You see it work out for you 1,000 times. You see it work the other way for a bunch of people. And it's like, yo, man, I ain't even got to waver. Not only do I know who I am, I've known who I am for a long time type stuff. I ain't got to waver. And that's the beauty of age. I ain't got to waver. And so as y'all see, I'm by myself most of the time. And even though I want certain consequences that come with having friends and people around me, at the end of the day, this is how I know to keep my days from sucking. This is quite literally. So, that's my therapy session. Hope it was good for something. My name is BDF 44. I thank y'all for watching.